Okay, the while loop. So as its name suggests, it runs while something is true. So the syntax, the rules for running it are very simple. Is very simple. While a condition is true, so a condition like we have seen with if statements and elif statements, they check whether a condition is true or false. While that condition is true, then the code inside the loop, so the indented code in the case of Python, will be executed over and over again. And it gets repeatedly executed while that condition is true. As soon as the condition becomes false, the loop terminates, and then the code execution moves onto the next statement down. So it's like going round and round and round, but as soon as the condition is not true anymore, it'll jump down to the next statement down, like we've seen in all our programs previously. If the condition is not true at the beginning, then the loop is never executed. Okay, so loops don't have to run. They will only run if the condition happens to be true. And if the condition never becomes false, the loop, in theory, would execute forever. Normally, you'd stop it externally somehow. This is known as an infinite loop. It's quite a common control structure. For example, going back to our cash machine, you can imagine that just being an infinite loop. It's just told to keep running. Every time somebody puts in their card, then it sets off the sequence of checking what they want and whether they got the money in the bank account to do that. But then it will just keep running and running and running. And it normally would stop when maybe the machine is rebooted or something like that. So infinite loops, they're not ideal because they're sometimes to be avoided. For example, in a game, you don't want something to just be stuck in an infinite loop, but they do happen and they are useful. Okay, there's a page on W3 Schools about while loops. Have a look at that. So here's an example. Our simple examples, just to demonstrate what's happening, we're just going to print out some very simple output. So in this case, this while loop, it has a string called output here, which is set to be an empty string to start with. So two inverted commas next to each other, there's nothing in the string. And then each time it goes around the loop, what happens? We add an extra star onto the end of the output string. So we get an extra star on the end, and the counter goes up by 1. Okay, counter starts at 0, counter goes up by 1 each time around the loop, which means that this while condition, while the counter is less than 4, is eventually going to hit that termination point when the counter becomes 4 or 5 or 6 or whatever. As soon as that happens, the loop will stop running. Okay, and when that stops running, then it prints the stars out. So it's not printing them out every time around the loop, it's printing them out once the loop has run. Okay, and that number there, 4, just determines the number of stars. Okay, let's actually run one of those. There's the code. So if I run this in PyCharm, there it is. It's printed 4 stars. If I change that to 400, it lost me. Yeah. So I haven't told you about this, but PyCharm, if you're already running a program and you try and run it again, it'll ask you what you want to do. In this case, we're still running it because I've got this press return to continue, and I haven't pressed return yet. So normally you just say yes, we'll just rerun the program. And there you are. You see, it's printed out. In this case, 400 stars. I'm not going to count them. I think we'll trust that that Python's got it right. So this loop, as I said, the output variable in this case is set to just be an empty string, and each time around the loop, another star is added on the end. So after the first time around the loop, the output contains 1 star, and the second time it contains 2 stars. And we can even follow this in the debugger. So let's check this. So I'm going to put a breakpoint. It doesn't really matter. Let's put a breakpoint. Let's put the breakpoint here, because then I can show you it running. So if I run this in the debugger, let's put a breakpoint here as well. If I run this in the debugger, again, it's asking me if I want to kill the previous example. Yes, I do. And it will stop on this line here where I've got the the first breakpoint. So I can step over that. Remember, the controls for the debugger are down here on the left, bottom left. So I can step over that line while the counter is less than 400. I forgot to change that. Output plus equals 1. So you can see it's recording the value of variables here. So it's got counter is 0, output is nothing at the moment, or just an empty string. Now the output has got a star added onto the end of it, and counter is incremented to 1. You'll see at the top here it's telling us what those variables are set to. So counter is less than, counter is 1, output is star. If I step over again and again, I get another star, and then when I step over that, the counter gets incremented to 2. Okay, so you can see every time I go around, let's put the breakpoint there. And let's continue. Okay, we haven't got anywhere. If I continue again, the counter is set to 3 and the output is set to 3 stars. So every time around this loop, the counter gets incremented by 1, the output gets an extra star on the end, and I can continue and continue and continue. Obviously, that's going to loop around 400 times. Each time around, the output gets an extra star, the counter gets set to 1, and then it goes back to the top. And that's the difference between this code and most of the other code we've seen. It's going back on itself to go back to the top of the loop where the loop starts. Okay, we don't really need to run that 400 times. Let's just continue to the end, and now we print the output. When the counter gets to 400, then this condition is no longer true if counter is less than 400, and so the loop terminates, and then it jumps down to this line here. The output has now got 400 stars in it, and if I step over that, then in the console they get printed out. Okay, there they are. So that plus equal operator, that's another thing to say. We've seen how it glues a string on the right hand side, the string on the right hand side, the star, onto the end of the string stored in the variable on the left hand side. So just to say what happens if you, that's what we saw with the message we've seen previously and the star just now. If you've got numbers, then plus equal just adds the number on the right hand side into the number stored in the left hand side. So here pay plus equals 10,000 adds 10,000 into the variable pay. That would be nice, wouldn't it? So this plus equals, you see it's happened, we're using it twice here. Counter output plus equals star, that gluing the value onto the end of the string, but counter plus equals 1, it just increments the counter by 1. So it's adding 1 to the current value of counter. So counter plus equals 1 is the same as counter equals counter plus 1. Okay, so just in case you were wondering about that, because we haven't really met that before. Okay, I'm going to stop there, and then we'll look at the for loop in the next video.